Hello everyone, and a good day to all of you. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to spend some time today to talk about German field hats, Feldmütze, as I've named my channel after, given that I wear these a lot and I really do like them. And I've been getting a few questions about them recently, so I did want to just make a video where I kind of consolidate all of that and that I can kind of reference in the future. So what I have right here is the Bundeswehr field hat. I'm going to be talking mostly about these, though I will also be talking about some of the World War II era ones as well. There are also some similarly styled hats as well, for example the Finnish hats. I'm not going to be talking too much about them, just understand they do exist. And furthermore, I'm not going to be talking too much about history itself behind these hats. I think with my hatism that I do think some of the history behind it is interesting, but I'm just going to briefly touch on it at most just when it's relevant. Overall, I'm just mostly going to be talking about why I like these hats in a modern, practical context. I do think that they work really well for a lot of tasks, and they're just really comfortable more than anything. So, starting off with my own personal reasons with why I do like these types of hats. Now, I have a lot of just German field hats in general, a lot of the World War II reproduction ones, and then probably mostly I have these the Bundeswehr style, which I do like the most. So my reasoning behind wearing these a lot is I do a lot of shooting at the range. Of course, wearing hearing protection, I do prefer over the ear. And one thing I always ran into a couple years back was I was wearing a lot of baseball hats at the time, as pretty much everyone does. But after about 2-ish hours, usually right around that mark, I would always get kind of a little bit of a headache starting right around this area. And I believe that it was due to the sweatband in the baseball hats that I wore, and it was kind of pushing in from the peltors that I usually wear. So I kind of experimented with a lot of hats years back and kind of realized that this is the only type of hat that I had that is really comfortable. So the reason for that is that these, specifically the Bundeswehr ones, I should say, some other German field hats do have a sweatband, but these ones do not. You can see it's just a nice flat, and furthermore, if you look at the shape right here, I think that this kind of how it goes to a peak looks cool, but do note that if I kind of push this down so it doesn't look all puffed out, just look at the side though. You can see that the side fabric, and actually maybe you can see it better if I actually put this on, it's pretty narrow. So it does help so that less fabric is underneath my peltors when I'm wearing them, less they can get bunched up. Now granted, the peltors do sit pretty high, so there is still fabric underneath it that gets pushed, but it doesn't cause an issue. I've never had an issue with a tension headache from this. Now, some of that might have just been from the glasses I was wearing at the time too. Ultimately, I've now changed the type of glasses I wear and the types of hats, but just keep in mind, I do know that not everyone I talk to has issues with headaches with certain types of hats and hearing protection, but that was my main reasoning for going with that. Now branching out to more of the World War II era hats, talking more so about the winter, it is the spring, which is questionable from the background right now, but when it is actually winter and then there's a lot of snow and it's just cold, one of my favorite hats to wear by far is going to be the classic M43 hat. And all these World War II styled ones I have, these are all just repros. Like I said, the actual ones cost quite a bit of money, so I'm not going to buy those and wear them out like this. But despite the fact that this is a not great repro, the peak, for example, is kind of floppy, and granted it's gotten kind of more beaten up because I've worn this for about a decade now, but these are really, really nice. Just on their own like this, they're already very warm, quite nice. Again, they're nice and narrow on the sides, so fairly easy, even though it does have these ear flaps that you can see kind of wraps around the hat itself. Even though it has that, still get a nice seal with hearing protection, which is not something I get with beanies. And furthermore, like I said, this does have an actual ear flap, which you can see buttons here in the front. I actually saw some more modern Bundeswehr ones, which I believe were for the Gebraugsjäger, just in the surplus store yesterday. And those still have the ear flap. They are overall a bit of a thinner material, but they're an interesting hat as well. And the way that this ear flap works, so it just folds over the sides of the hat. When you want it to come down, you just undo these two buttons right here in the front. There was a different version of, I forget the exact model, but one of the World War II versions did just have a single button in the front. I do prefer the 2 button. I just think it looks better. Personally, I never really wear the ear flaps down too much because for me, when it does get cold, I always have a balaclava on me anyway. But if you do need that extra bit of warmth, as I'll show you here, and I will say that these buttons are always kind of tight. I usually don't wear this. If you wear this a lot, it would break in and be easier to pop out here. Right, so that took a while, but here we go. So flaps come down right here, unfolds just like so. Then you have this really nice covering across the entirety of the back of your head. And then this dangly part right here, you can just rebutton this underneath your chin and it just holds everything in place. Really well thought out here. Now another style of hat that I do not have is the M41 Africa Corps hat, which I do think I might pick some up in the future. Because one problem I do have with the Bundeswehr ones, if you look right here, so the way that the M41 Africa Corps hat is, it's pretty much exactly like this. It just, doesn't have the ear flaps of the M43, but all the rest of it follows more or less the same profile. There are some slight differences, but more or less just like that. I do like the brim being this far out. If you compare that to the Bundeswehr one, that is my only complaint about this new style of hat, is that this is a much more reduced brim. So not as much sunshade as far as actual functional application goes. And another difference between the World War II hats compared to the newer ones is they did really reduce the front peak. You can see, like I said, still has it on these newer hats, but it was much more pronounced on the older ones like this. The only thing I do want to point out that is a shortcoming of any just regular brimmed hat like this to keep in mind is if you are going for camouflaging, just keep in mind that the silhouette that this gives off is pretty obvious. It's a pretty obvious humanoid silhouette compared to if you have a boonie, especially if you start to just even do some basic ghillie-ing up on this. So that's really the only major downside of any hat like this, but of course much more easy to transport and carry and wear around, especially if you're in vehicles a lot. To start on just some of the kind of reviews, like I said, really quick of all these hats that I do have. So starting with the Bundeswehr modern style field hats. So I've got 3 of these. I have the gray one that I started the video with, as well as a multicam one right here. These are identical. These are both made by the same company, Fritzsch KG, which you can pick these up off of either their eBay or also ASMC sells this gray one, just as the Bundeswehr. Interestingly, olive drab field hat, which this is definitely not olive drab in the slightest. It is actually stamped correctly. So when I first got this, I thought maybe they sent the wrong one, but if you even look here, it does say that it is olive green. But if you are looking for a green hat, just keep in mind this is definitely not green. I actually do like the look of it regardless, but it was a little bit of a surprise when I got that. As far as the Fritzsch KG hats sizing, I have noticed I usually wear a size 60. I'm pretty much right on the dot of size 60, and these all started out a little bit big. I would probably not go a size down with them because that would be probably way too small, but if it is slightly too large for you, as it was for me, you can just warm up the hat itself in some warm water, and then what I like to do is actually put a headband over the hat and wear it, and then while it dries, it'll kind of dry and kind of tighten down onto your head and just be a really well shaped that way. Otherwise, just wearing it out and having hearing protection over it, it just kind of does eventually fit it well to your head. Both of these fit fine now. As for this third one I have here, this is just a Flecktarn one. Now this one, interestingly, was the very first one I bought. This is actually a Chinese reproduction. Again, it's well made enough, but it's actually really easy to get the authentic ones just from regular surplus stores. There's a lot of places online, eBay for instance. These are quite simple to find. So I would just go with the actual ones. You can find ones that are in brand new or almost new condition, and they are pretty much dirt cheap, and you'll get just pretty much this right here. One thing about all these Bundeswehr field hats is they all do come with the tricolor federal cockade sewn onto the front, just like in a little, sort of like a diamond or an angled square shape. Now, you can't see it on any of mine. You can kind of see where it was, especially I think it's most obvious probably on this one, though still it's pretty hard to tell, but I do just cut that out on all of mine. I don't really like wearing any insignia whatsoever, regardless, because it's just not what I feel like doing. Moving now to 2 other M43 hats that I have. So I have a Splittertarnmuster hat right here, as well as a herringbone green hat right here. And this one is actually a nice forest green as well. Like I mentioned, you can see immediately on the peak that this is quite a bit higher on the front here. One thing, so these are both MilitaryHarbor. It's a Chinese repro company. I will say, however, that despite that, these are actually really, really well made. It's quite impressive in that regard. As far as sizing, yet again, these actually do run quite large. Those Fritzsch KG hats, as I mentioned earlier, they were kind of large, but these are significantly on the large side. Again, the same trick of kind of tightening them down around your head works, and that's what I did on both of these. One other trick you can do is if you do the pinch, just kind of like that, get a nice triangle there in the center. It does help to just tighten the whole hat down on your head a little bit better. These also do have the ear flaps. Of course, these aren't wool, so they're not going to be as warm, but it can help a little bit in kind of a demi-season hat. One thing I do find quite cool about these hats is I actually did check this one in particular under night vision, and they actually did the camo, they dyed it correctly, because this doesn't have any issue with NIR emission. It looks exactly like this camo under NIR as well, which I was not expecting, but pretty impressive. So it's really well done there. And both of these MilitaryHarbor hats, you can either get them on their Amazon page or directly through their site, which is personally the route I went because I hate Amazon. But either way, it's pretty much the same price. And also, MilitaryHarbor is located actually in China, so it will take a little bit from when you order the hat to when you actually get it. In my case, it took about 2.5 weeks, which is totally fine, but just keep in mind it's not going to be immediate. So thank you all for watching this video on Feldmütze, the kind of the namesake of the channel. I hope that you found this video informative, or at the least hopefully it was enjoyable. It was certainly an enjoyable video to make and to satiate my hatism. There are a lot of hats like this out there. As I kind of mentioned at the start, back in the day there were a lot of other countries actually that had very similarly styled hats. It's just a lot of them nowadays have simplified to it, and really it's only the German ones nowadays that kind of you still hear about. But these are really well-made hats. As I said, they still hold up and have a lot of functional uses even today. I do like the look of them, and yeah, they're cool hats, if nothing else. If you have anything else, please, by all means, do leave that in the comments. I always appreciate them. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.